Good morning again. I welcome everyone who is following us on this particular show of Pan-African Friday, coming all to you all the way from the Nile Avenue in Kampala at UBC. Every Friday, we are normally here to discuss and share with you ideas on the issues of existence, survival, and development of the African continent. Today, in the studio, I'm joined by the usual panelists, but also, I think different from the rest today, I'm joined by Madame Doreen Daisy. Now, Madame Doreen Daisy, is it Daisy? Daisy is the manager of UBC Radios, and with her today, again, we have the usual panelists, Ndugu Rugarama, Dan, and also Sister Tagali Rachel. We'll be looking at issues other than, I think today it will be different because we have been looking at issues of economics on the African continent, issues of politics on the African continent, issues of all those things. Today we're coming back home to look at the basic unit that makes Africa what it is, and that is a family. And from the family, we are looking at issues now. Actually, it is Rachel who gave me this tagline, that gender mainstreaming. Whatever that means, I think has a lot to mean when it comes to gender mainstreaming. If you put it in any of our local languages, it will have a full paragraph. Now, we'll be looking at gender mainstreaming, issues of gender, especially in the African context. So we'll be looking at issues of men, issues of women, issues of the family, issues of children, issues of child upbringing, and I'm sure it is a very impregnated topic that we may not exhaust today, but we'll be going step by step and see how far we can go in that. Normally, we begin with looking at our week, how it has been in the African perspective. Ndugu Rugarama, how has been your week this week?
Good morning to you, our dear viewers, and good morning, my dear sisters in the studio and Ndugu Mututa. What caught my attention this week, particularly, was this supposed 14 or 16, I think 14-year-old girl who is being beaten left and right by other equally young girls, and her crime, so the media carries it, is that she was attempting to have an affair with one of their boyfriends. And then in another caption, the same young 15 or 14-year-old is seen swimming and putting all sorts of dancing strokes. Of course, then police comes in and brings her to the station. She refuses to cooperate, to such that the other culprits who were beating her up could be brought to book. There are a number of parents that have come up to have a say about that particular incident, but I think it speaks to the topic we are going to have today.
Sure.
And that is why, to me, as far as the week is concerned, that is something that really captured my attention, because it has got quite a number of talking points, ranging from parenting to where we are as a family in the African context.
Sure.
Then finally, I also saw something, I'm yet to verify it, where our Vice President was announcing that information sharing is very important in NRM, and as such, our President, the chairman of the NRM party, and the President of the Republic of Uganda will be offering himself for yet another term to the voting population of Uganda come 2026.
Sister Rachel.
These are interesting times. I think for me, one of the things that stood out this particular week is when the Prime Minister suggested that the military needs to be invited to step into the education sector. And she cited a number of achievements they've had in a number of national programs, Operation Wealth Creation, for example, or in the fisheries sector when they intervened in a situation gone very bad. So she was saying that on account of the fact, for example, that these inspectors of schools are fast asleep on the job, maybe military kind of discipline is really what we need. I thought that was very interesting. And I think as the leader of government business, that we can say is a pronounced rebuke of the bureaucrats who are concerned with that sector, which is not something that we can be proud of. But other than that, of course, in the health sector, there is a very big applause to Honorable Acheng and her health team, who have done a commendable job to arrest Ebola that was hard on our heels and a threat to, of course, not just the health sector, but to the country as a whole.
Sure.
That, to me, constitutes some of the more important stories on the local scene.
That's true. Madam Don, do you have something that caught your attention this week?
This week, I wouldn't deviate from what my sister Rachel is saying, especially in the health sector. And that shows how far we've gone. Because being able to manage a pandemic, an epidemic like Ebola, the last Ebola I saw, even last night, the discussions, the last Ebolas were so bad. But this one, at least we had a more than 50 recovery rate, and which shows where Uganda is going, especially in science, in health. But that shows that as a country, because Ebola is not a joking disease, it's, in most cases we've seen in West Africa where it killed so many people. But the way Uganda managed it, especially in the spreading, and that shows that locally probably we've grown maybe skills, we've grown practices that are good. Even the way the citizens responded to the lockdown of the areas that were affected, which made it not possible, because Ebola moves like fire.
Sure.
If you allow it to just move, then the entire country, but being able to contain it in a small locality so that few people are affected. And I applaud the families in that area, because if it was not their efforts, especially the women, because it's women normally who contain how people move, especially the children, because I think life continued. They would go and fetch firewood, fetch water, somehow move a little. But we thank also government for being able to put in place that. And I will always say, I think my president is the best president, because being able, for people being able to listen to you and respond. I wish all Africa could do the same, where you respond. An emergency is an emergency.
Sure.
That made my week.
Yeah.
Negatively, the year is still young, but also what how the media is bringing out negative issues and trivializing them. Like that issue of this girl who was being caned, and you know, it's painful because you see the media that is supposed to educate people, it's like, this is okay. And some of our media stations, of course, some of our outlets, some of the WhatsApp, were like, life continues. This has happened. This girl is young. She even probably doesn't know what she's doing, but it's okay. which is killing us as a continent.
Sure. A lot definitely has happened, of course, in many other quarters, but these people what you have raised are the definitely issues, especially on the Ugandan scene, that caught the attention of many people. And looking at that, of course, talking about the media again, there's the ongoing now debate about the issues of the media and the president of South Sudan. The way the pictures and the videos were leaked to the media from that function, and of course there's a debate. Was it necessary to have this video out there? Could someone not see what was happening and stop it? And this being a national broadcaster, couldn't you expect that there was? So there is a lot of debate, but one other person is saying, but that is what happened. So of course in journalism there are many principles, and one of them is that the absolute truth, that was the absolute truth. But someone could have also argued that it was not necessary, because if, for example, you found your mother walking naked in the street, you will still take that picture and show it because this is absolute truth. So these are some of the issues of intellectual debate of what happens in the media today, and more so when it comes to the social media, which is not regulated. Of course, there are countries that definitely have tried to curtail and monitor and regulate, but still I'm sure it is a big challenge, not only in Africa, but also in other countries, even China, which is heavily controlled. But these are the issues that we have seen happen. So going back to our topic of this gender mainstreaming, and I'm told that means that there must be no little gap between the genders, and specifically the two genders we're talking about are the known two genders. Of course, I'm told there are more than that. That is not the area we are in today. We are looking at the African gender structure. Now, we talk about gender mainstreaming and we talk about gender equality. Now, for me, and for, of course, many other of our viewers who are following us from outside there, not necessarily because, remember last time one was also arrested who was on phone and was driving. The one was saying that was multitasking. So we're not talking about those who are multitasking in a dangerous way. Should we be looking at gender equality? Should we be talking at gender equity, gender equality? What makes sense? I'll begin with you, Rachel.
That's an interesting question. This issue of gender equality or gender equity, unlike what many people have said, is not a Western preserve.
Sure.
It is a human question, by the way. I firmly resist efforts to actually put us in straitjackets concerning what should actually be a human thing, and then you restrict it to gender terms.
Is it a value issue or is it a human issue?
It's a human issue. In other words, there is no rational human being who would argue that, for example, if you're the head of a family and you have 2 girls and 3 boys, it is not rational to deny the girls certain things just because they are girls.
Now, is that equality, is it equity?
Equality, in my view, should not be reduced to gender.
We're talking about gender for now.
And I am saying, for me, I refuse to reduce it to gender.
Mm-hmm.
I was giving you an example. It is a human thing. In other words, anybody who understands that human beings, whether they are short or tall, female or male, deserve a certain treatment, regardless of where they're coming from, will not struggle with gender issues, is what I'm trying to say. So this business of restricting it to male and female is harmful in my estimation. Mm-hmm. It is harmful because It started well. And as you know, I am refusing to talk about equity or equality. I am saying this debate needs to be elevated to the fact that anyone who treats a man well should also understand that a woman also deserves to be treated well, not because of that gender. If you're treating somebody well because they are tall, you should do the same for a short person. It is not about the height. It is about the fact that they are a human being. They deserve to be treated with dignity and with respect.
So when we look at that in terms of now the African world and the Western culture, the Western world, we are saying, when we flash back, when we get back, step back and look at the true African setting, which had all these genders. We have men and women. We have the structure of who the woman in the community, if we're looking at a wider society, and what a man in a woman or man in the wider society, the roles and the responsibilities. Because then the respect we're talking about you're talking about whether man or a woman or short or tall, the responsibilities, but also what goes with what they do. So when we look at that, that the two may be different, but they also have different things that they do in society.
Very true. You're talking about equality, returning to that term. Yes, human beings are equal. And again, I'm resisting men and women. I'm saying human beings are equal. In other words, we have the same worth. We deserve the same respect and dignity. We deserve the same services. Because
you don't expect a man to go to a maternity for services.
No, no, no. You're talking about roles. That is a different thing.
Yeah.
For example, Madame Doreen here, she's my boss. And she has a role, and that role puts her above me in the world of work. But as human beings, we are equal in terms of what should be due us. In other words, healthcare should not be offered me because I'm a man. No. Some people don't understand that every time you demean a fellow human being, you're demeaning yourself. Yeah, and every time you keep someone from getting where they should be, you also cannot get there.
Madame Doreen, what do you understand of the equality and the equity in this gender?
Now, the reality is, in the perspective of like Africa,
yes,
the concept of gender is old as it has existed, but terming it, picking that word, and we start using it in the development agenda. And it comes up because of imbalances that have existed in all societies, by the way. We shouldn't look at Africa and we think that it's only women in Africa who were not participating.
To the contrary, actually, Africa could be doing better.
Yes, and it's because of that imbalance. And when you look at equality, you start with equality. Now, equality, as the word says, 2 plus 2 is equal to 2. Or 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. It's just a matter of measuring the numbers. That's my understanding. Where you say that if we have maybe, because gender is a development concept,
yes,
trying to bring everyone on board equally. Now where we say, if we are giving male X this, we should also give female X equal. If we are giving attention to, if you are sending children to school, equally due to both genders. Because basically genders, it's male and female, but also there are other genders that have come up of recent.
That have been created.
Yes, that have been created, evolving. Probably we might end up by maybe 2050, we could have like 6 genders that are identified. So equality is an issue of equalizing numbers in terms of quantitative. But equity is about qualitative, the quality of life. Now that's where you go into things like emotionally, how do you support both? That's my understanding, both male and female. And what quality of life are they living? If you have things like now you've seen, we are saying, we have how many women, as a way of equalizing, we have how many women on all councils. But to what level are they empowered to really be effective and participate? Because it's not a matter of you being present. It's also a matter, if you are just present, then it doesn't make any sense. You should be able to qualitatively have a contribution, bring up issues. Why are you there? Like now, we've had women in councils, but who don't even talk, who don't even make a contribution. Equality has been achieved, but equity, because the contribution is not there, maybe. Equality in terms of the budget, women have this chunk, men have this chunk. Women programs are supported, the general programs. Only where I have a challenge is in this gender mainstreaming, equality, we end up looking at one side. Now you keep pushing the female until you reach a time where you are like, what is happening to the other side? And that's why you are seeing discussions about how do we empower the male child are starting to come up. Probably we are over equalizing and equating to the extent that it's like we are leaving out someone. And the repercussions could be very negative, because you might end up empowering a certain group beyond another one which can't cope.
Or against.
Yes, against the other one. They might end up breaking. If you keep putting up a rope and this side is not pulling, you are pulling one side, it will end up breaking and you will end up at a loss.
Nduguru Garama, is this gender issue a value issue or a human right issue?
Thank you so much, Comrade Mututa. This topic is very intriguing. I want to start off by saying that we are aware, fundamentally speaking, that a man and a woman are different biologically. At least that one is an established fact. That biologically speaking, a man, the way he is built, the reproductive organs, in some cases, the physical appearance, and I'm saying in some cases because, or for that matter, in a majority of the cases, because we have some women who are actually built like men. Now, that does not make them men. Or we have some men who are actually built like women. That does not make them women.
Sure.
Now, God, and I am premising this on the belief that God is the one who created everything, and finally created man, and by man I mean woman and a man, or male and female, to say you preside over my creation. So in that sense, therefore, we shouldn't be laboring a lot as human beings to discriminate each other. Because to agree with my sister Rachel, I am a firm believer from the Pan-African point of view that nobody, male or female, tall or short, black or white, if there is something like black or white human beings, is supposed to be discriminated. Generally speaking, that's how it is supposed to be. Now, to come to this submission, realistically speaking, is it what is happening? No, what is happening is actually what she says, that you find that be it in America, be it here on the African continent, even what we call culture, these discriminations come. Whether they have been built over a time by our practices. Because you see, fundamentally speaking, who makes what? Does culture make man, or man makes culture? And I think when we appreciate that, then we shall get it right. In my opinion, man makes culture. Why do I say so? I say so because through metamorphosis, we have seen transition in culture. That, for instance, if in West Africa, about 100 plus years ago, twins would be born and would be taken to the forest and killed, this time around, when twins are born, you are given a very high-sounding title of a Sarongo and a Narongo, and the twins actually are revered in the society and they are given a special attention and respect. What has changed? Meaning, therefore, that man makes culture, not the other way around. Culture is not static. Biblically, we realize when we go through a number of books that they would talk about things, cows, sheep, goats, other material possessions, and then they would also add women. What does that mean? That women were, even in the Bible, put as an additional material possession for a man. Now that man, therefore, does not include woman. He is there, especially in the first books, when you go through the first books. So, but again, we see the role of women in the Bible as extremely being important. When we continue, in my opinion, therefore, as far as this subject is concerned, I think what is giving us trouble, especially from the African point of view, is that Africa as a society is historically value-led society. We are not a rights society like the Western world.
Sure. Mm.
By value, rights is just a small component within values. By value, I mean, or values, I mean that it was natural for a child to know its role in society, give respect to the elders would pay back by protecting that same child. A child would be a child for an entire community. That's where the proverb comes that it takes a village to raise a child.
A child, yes.
The success of a child was a responsibility of a society, a community, not a single responsibility of a biological father and a biological father. I also hasten to add that ours was, which is dying now, unfortunately, extended family. We are not a nucleus society. It is now emerging, sadly, whereby we refer to each other as cousin. That's foreign to us. A daughter of your uncle, the brother to your father, is your brother, period. And he would come into your family, assuming his biological father actually died.
Yeah, you are
He would grow and you would see no difference at all.
Sure.
But now, what is happening is that because of the bombardment of the Western culture into our culture, which came as a consequence of one, colonialism, that colonialism which came with other associates such as religion, we have battered left and center the African traditional culture to the extent, therefore, that we now talk about certain issues to do with, we are here talking about equality, we are talking about, first of all, there will never be such a thing as equality in society. It will never be there. That we are all equal? No. We can strive, and I am deliberately using the word strive for equity. That, and I think Rachel brought this one out clearly, that look, it should be that we are all equal. It should be. But are we all equal? No. But aren't there certain services that should be provided to all of us evenly? Yes, that's what it should be. But that it is not. What should we be looking at? Equity. Sure. Can we have services that are meant to be exposed to all of us, be exposed to all of us equitably? I want to conclude by saying that the African traditional society can no longer pretend to preserve its original set values. We have been attacked for a number of hundreds of years. We have been attacked and we seem to be defenseless.
Sure.
And the values that have been attacked through colonialism with its attendant spillovers has had a negative ripple effect on our culture, that we are now grappling with the situation of parenting, which has gone we way, and with it, the education system that we're exposed to is also not helping matters. We can only talk about formal education, which is entirely colonial, that other forms of education, like transmitting oral transmission of knowledge from the older generation to our generation, no longer makes sense. And that is why the old people's stories are not respected, including our languages.
I was reading through this this magazine of the movement of Me Too. There's a group, they call themselves Me Too. I think it was started by the Americans. And this Me Too is a group especially of activists who believe that that there's a lot of violence within the gender status that, and of course last time as we were closing the year, we were talking here about women who are beating men or men who are beating women, and we have seen this of course happen not only in one community, not in the black society, it is happening everywhere. Now in America, for example, it's becoming very complicated to hire both men and women in the same organization. The reason is that you stand to have a lot of lawsuits. For example, a man will look at a woman and this woman will say, this man is sexually harassing me. Or you inappropriately or accidentally touch this woman, and this woman will sue you for sexually harassing her. Now, so in that environment, companies will prefer to hire either men alone or hire women alone to avoid these problems. Now, the French, there's another movement of the French women who are saying, you know, I think Americans are being nonsensical, because it is only natural that when a man looks at a woman, will either admire or appreciate. And if someone is not going to appreciate you as a woman, and then when he looks at you, or whether she also looks at you, and you claim that you are sexually being harassed, then there's going to be a problem of when can men and women be men and women. So such that what I'm talking is that sometimes when we sexualize this gender issue so much, then like she said, we are getting into a trap where it will be sometimes very difficult to reverse. For example, African society has a lot of respect for women. A woman who is not your wife, a woman who is not your daughter or your mother, there is that respect that is accorded to such a woman. Or if it's your sister, then there is that respect that is accorded to the woman. And of course, the men also, there is that respect that is accorded, because sometimes as we are growing up, they'll tell you, they tell a girl, why are you fighting with men? Why are you sitting with men? Or they will tell the boys, why are you sitting with the women in the kitchen, or something like that. So like you are saying, that this was now a value-led society. But now we are coming to the right-led society, where you say, why did you even discipline my child? Why did you beat my child, actually? If you found a child messing, and then you try to correct as a society, then you are going to run in trouble. Even the parents themselves, they will have problem when they try to discipline the child, because then the child will say, my rights have been abused. Of course, there have been extremes. I saw a clip today when some man was beating a child like he was beating a stone. There are those extremes. That's not what I'm talking about. So, in this particular context, how can we, as the African society, because we are not going to be Americans, even if we try to copy, we're not going to copy everything. We are not going to be like any other society. So how can we have the society that we are talking about, the African society and the African values, protected?
You see, what is maybe very clear on this. What happens is that we miss the point here, where instead of cooperating to harness our different strengths and help each other, because we cannot have the same strength, we are into competition. Now, when we go into competition, which actually appears to be happening, and I'm saying appears to be happening, when you enter into certain movements, like, for instance, I would have no issues with women empowerment, because I do recognize as a father of girls, and also somebody who was born with girls, and who has seen what has been happening, who reads history to appreciate that women in some respects have been disadvantaged, whereby like Martin Luther King acknowledges that I should be judged not by my sexual orientation, biological formation, but by my capacity to think and apply my knowledge. And I agree that what should define and why I should, how I should judge Rachel or any other woman for that matter is not simply because she's a woman. And I wouldn't be like to be judged simply because I am a man, because there are other men like me who are certainly not me. Now, when you go into judging somebody that you can access, for instance, which the feminist movements are trying to fight, and the concept of feminism has also raised dust. You know, when you talk about feminism, my sister Adeche Adeche Chimamanda, the Nigerian writer, who is one of the leading feminists on the continent, will tell you that there is nothing as beautiful as feminism. Now, I was trying to look at the definition of feminism and to compare it with hers, because for hers, she says, a feminist is a man, a woman or a man who aspires to attain the balancing, socio-economic balancing of distribution of aspects within those sectors to humanity. But when you go deep and look at what has actually created the divide and why the need, is that probably we are not premising the aspirations of feminism on the core values of Africa as a society.
Sure.
Now, if that was happening, because even in the past, I want to argue, even in the past, and the far past, not just the recent past, you will appreciate that we had very strong women on the African continent that were doing great work, not just for women, but for the entire society. You go to the Asante Hene, like the golden stool.
Yeah, the women who fought.
Yes, who used to keep the golden stool.
Exactly.
See, these were women. You go to the Uganda kingdom and you look at the position that was given by the Queen Mother. You see, even up to now, these were strong positions. You go to such institutions like marriage, and you realize that there was nothing like we have it today, that you would get a woman, even if, by the way, she was barren, and that you say, you dismiss her, you go away. That wouldn't happen. There is a place should be given in the African setting. Even if you said that you have got irreconcilable differences, which is one of the grounds that we say for us in the legal world, upon which you can dissolve a marriage, and a woman has got children within that home. If the elders come and see, they will say, no, she's going nowhere, she's going to get her piece of land on you, the man. You are part of your land, and then you're going to put up a house for her, she will stay there. Majority of people would not even know that you no longer sleep together. In other words,
so the empowerment, it was more.
In other words,
society.
when you talk about the empowerment, it was very clear that the African society had better ways of empowering the women than even the European, or for that matter, the Western Europe society.
Rachel, let's talk about this women empowerment. I think because it has become more empowerment towards women more than men, because I think something is trying to be reached, and some aspirations that I think achieved. Do you up to date believe that now this movement, empowerment of women has achieved its goals?
It can't achieve its goals.
Why?
For the simple reason that the movement has been hijacked
by
extremists whose agenda is purely political. They're looking for brutal power.
That is true.
For that reason, it will keep evolving until we totally don't recognize it. They say they're for women, but there is nothing pro-women about this movement. By the way, that's where we're headed. Because let me even finish what I was saying. Where this whole movement began, at least the one that is recorded clearly, some say it dates back as far as the Greek times, but that is for another culture. The Western context in which we are debating this whole concept stretches definitively to the 14th to 17th century, the Renaissance, they say. And then after that, there was the more defined one also during the Enlightenment. And this one ended at the end of the Napoleonic Wars, that is 815 or so. So the modern pro-women movement actually began in the early 19th century, late 18th, and it began in what we call the urban setting, most importantly in America. And the issue was improvement of employment. That's really where it began. Employment terms, opportunities, and it also was very much about adult suffrage, voting rights. That's where this thing began. And then it began to evolve to encompass all the other atmospheres or the other spheres that adversely affect women. So today they talk about the waves of feminism. It's no longer feminism as a whole. They talk about that defined era passing, and then we entered the near past, and that's when they talked about the beginnings of this anti-discrimination movement. Mm. Presently, we are in what they call the third wave, the dangerous wave. Initially, the feminist movement talked about the things you were talking about the challenges African traditional society had in terms of balancing the needs of women against men, and the needs, I'm sure they stretched to Arabs and to the Asians elsewhere and to the Europeans. But the present feminist movement has problems. Because the women who are at the forefront of this movement,
the empowered women,
they don't represent the most disempowered. They do not. That is why the hierarchy or the top feminists,
yes,
they have the best cars, they have top-notch education.
I'll add something.
They have connections that are out of this world. They're very empowered in terms of measuring the parameters. But the women they claim to represent are not making progress. And they don't care. As long as they can get that money coming, as long as they can populate global conferences, as long as they can look like the people they say they represent, they keep this thing going. There is a dangerous disconnect between the issues of gender that drive, or that should drive, what this is all about and what is.
That is a strong statement, and I think when we come back from the break, we're going to look at that. But also, we're also talking about issues of the discrimination within even the empowered themselves. Because you remember in Uganda, when I think it's now a general agreement that to preserve certain positions for women. You say when this woman is elected to parliament as on the female ticket, we would expect that after 5 years, maybe he has been empowered enough and would leave for some other person to come in and get empowered. But we have seen it now becoming a permanent and to hold for a long time.
But have those communities advanced in terms of gender relations because there is a woman representative? No.
Exactly. Now, the other problem is that those women who are empowered, the women are the ones who are complaining. They are even now disempowering the other women more. Other than the position, there are also others who are claiming that they are also taking their men because they're in the better position to do so. So it's when we come back, we shall continue from there. Viewer, don't go away. We are here to discuss this issue of men and women and gender mainstreaming for the rest of the next 1 hour. Thank you. Don't go away.
It's Freaky Friday from Airtel. Buy or gift. Buy or give.
Get freaky too! bundle. Dial star 149 star 10 hash to load a Freaky Friday bundle for you to enjoy the best offers on voice and data.
To buy a bundle for friends and family, dial star 149 star 10 star 5 hash. Freaky Friday with Airtel. Buy or gift a bundle today. Dial star 149 star 10 hash to get started. Airtel, the smartphone network.
One-on-one with Michael Jordan Lukomwa.
A weekly face-to-face conversation focusing on accountability, inspiration, information, and sensitization of the public from the various sources, such as inspirational profiles.
Having a disability is not inability.
Professional guidance.
There is no special antiretroviral therapy that is given specifically for discordant couples.
And of course, politics.
Don't you see anywhere that you would give a credit in the fight against COVID?
My role as the owner of the country is not to, be preoccupied by giving credit to my servant.
We have said that if we are to talk to General Museveni, there must be certain conditions in place.
Is it true that you paid 5 million shillings to MPs that voted for Anita Mong and Tayebo?
That is laughable. Why would we pay when we have nominated them as SEC?
Every party has been represented in Uganda's parliament for 10 years. We only
by one MP, you yourself.
And my daughter, Susan.
Every Friday 9 p.m. it's One-on-One with Michael Jordan Lukomwa on UBC TV, inspiring Uganda.
The Tales of Kasozi, brought to you by Uganda Communications Commission.
Hello? This is Kasozi. How can I help you?
Hey, Kasozi, my brother. Long time. We last met when we were at campus. It's been a while, but you are the person I'm looking for.
Campus? Really?
Hey, you don't remember me?
Okay, so how can I help you?
I'm stuck in Gulu making millions, and I need to urgently send money to my sick mother. But I can't find any mobile money agent near me. I've sent the money to your phone, as you can see. It might take a few minutes to come through, but I urgently need you to send the money to my mother. Let me send you her number, and you send it to her chap.
My friend, I'm afraid your mom is going to die.
What?
Because I don't know you, I never went to campus, and I'm also in Gulu. So can we meet at CPS, we talk about it?
Stay tuned for what Kasozi does next.
Tofera, refrain from unnecessary engagements with strangers over the phone. This message is powered by the Uganda Communications Commission.
Yeah, well, welcome back to the segment of the Pan-African Friday, coming all the way from UBC broadcasting from Nailo Avenue in Kampala here. And we are here with panelists talking about the gender mainstreaming, the gender issues. It's a wide thing to look at the elephant in the room. Now, gentlemen and ladies, we are looking at this issue of gender. Someone would talk of gender disparities, but I think it's not the issue, because in African society and the African context, the issue of gender is so well defined because the values, because say it is a value-led society. Each category of gender has its assigned, unwritten values and roles that is supposed to play. But now we have come to this global society and the global village, where we are also not only copying, but also practicing what we are extrapolating from the other societies of the world, which may not necessarily be African. We have a lot of issues that are coming up. By the time we went for the break, we are talking about the empowerment, that the women empowerment. Now, when you are talking about women empowerment, it means that the women have been either oppressed or have been disadvantaged in the past, and now they are being given a voice for empowerment. But before we went for the break, we were also looking at the contradictions even within that, because are we trying to empower women against men? Are we trying to empower some women in that society against the rest of the women? Because if one is going to have a position which is supposed to be for women, and then it's going to hold that position forever, then what about the other women? And of course, by the time we broke off, we're talking about that empowerment has now given some women more money, more power, more voice, to the extent that they are using that same power to oppress other women within that category. So Rachel was talking about this issue having a lot of dangerous connotations, and Madame Doreen, do you think that this is part of the benefits of now the feminism movement, or do you also believe that this could also be a very dangerous trend, especially for the African communities, both within Africa and outside of Africa?
You see, for you to judge or measure, you have to see where it is coming from. Now, all these constructs, feminism, gender, they were good. From the beginning, people were fighting for the rights. People were fighting for people to participate positively, to make a contribution. But probably where we didn't notice, or where we've not noticed, along the way, as Rachel was saying, the entire thing is hijacked. It became more of, now you see even people putting, this is the Agenda Equality Organization on their logos and all that.
Sure.
It is commercial, it is political, it is social, it's everywhere. Instead of pushing for that balancing, because as you say, there is nothing like people can be equal. They can't. But the issue should be, how are we participating? How do we all benefit? How do we share? Do women feel they are being addressed, their issues are being addressed? But we reached somewhere, and it became more of a capitalistic tendency or connotation. And in most cases, in Africa, like in Uganda, if you are going to benchmark anything, if you are in business, you benchmark the best practices.
Sure.
You benchmark what is working. Because all these constructs came from Europe, America, you name it. But what we should ask ourselves, is it working?
Talking of which?
Violence, women battering, child neglect is the order of the day among those communities themselves. So if we are picking, we need to pick the real values, but that fit within, because I won't change. You cannot change. If you are going to borrow something
which is
that is working,
exactly,
that is worth. But when you go and borrow, and like my colleague was saying, if you've seen in Europe, in America, they have their own values, by the way, which are sacred to them. For example, what they call Thanksgiving Day. Yeah. You will see families gathering. And even them in their societies, they have grandpas, they have great-grandpas in real, but now for what they bring to us is the other side, which has gone astray.
At least it's like let's all miss it.
Yes,
But
if we
now,
can't have it.
You bring in this thing, and I've seen it. I think also taking a very strong trend on the African continent. I think we were talking it in the passing of the set, that women have now learned this issue of when I want to produce, I'll go for cesarean because I don't want to be white, so that when I get cesarean and I will not breastfeed, because then my breasts will surge. And then you need to have your breasts intact and everything intact, but you need babies. But also, we have also seen that children who miss that breastfeeding from their mothers have issues as they develop their brain, because you remove the breast, but also give them the milk of the cow. So in the future, when children begin behaving like cows, then you begin blaming government for not doing its part. So I'm talking about some of these copycats that we are copying. Is this going to take us, is this the advancement we think about, or it is something that we need also to look at?
Actually, I don't think we are even copying it from anywhere. Because especially in European countries now, they will, a certain doctor was telling me that, do you know, like in Norway, they've gone back to this while giving birth, they kneel. They encourage that. And that was an African tradition.
Some people still practice it, and
yes,
some women, I think.
They kneel. They encourage you to kneel. That's why they are saying, if you get a child, your job is free. We are giving you child welfare support. We are supporting you to make sure that you have a child.
Because the population is going.
Yes, and they are now realizing it. But when they come here, see the contradiction. They are telling you, don't produce children. Family planning. They will not even told you the consequences of family planning. By 16 years, first menstruation, you are in family planning, you are on contraceptions.
You are not even sure whether you will produce or not.
No one has even told you what could be the consequences of that. But somehow they are telling you this is the way to go. Now, when you look at even the things we are copying, it's the things they are fighting now. The society they are fighting to bring back is what is being discarded.
Now, talking about family planning, I think you raised some strong point there. A girl at 14, 15, 16, and is being given these tablets, these pills.
Or injection.
Or injection. So that you don't get pregnant. No one has taken you through the awareness and the consequences of the side effects of what you are being injected with or you are being given to swallow. And then you are also even ourselves, the Africans, promoting it in terms of family planning. Is that family planning really?
But which family are you planning for? Do you even have a family? If you call it family planning, at 16, you don't even have a family. And if you dig deep, these values of virginity, of what, among the people who are promoting that, they observe them. And they even make parties and whatever about it. But for you, they are telling you, only Africa, what we've lost, it's our self-value. When you look at what you think another person is doing, you think it's the best for you. Now, like the people you talked about who say, me, I want to push a baby, I want to do this, I want to breastfeed. I think now that's the worst contradiction. Because if you see what they are trying to preserve, those are the gender-empowered women,
exactly.
Not so, who think they are independent of men, they are what, but even what they are trying to preserve, breasts have to keep standing, I have to be that.
For who?
For who?
Like that.
Now that's the biggest irony and contradiction.
Yes.
You are, even your own child, you feel you are so selfish, preserving yourself because you don't want to lose value in terms of sexual appeal to men at the expense of the child. So to me, we are not coping anywhere anyway. I don't think. Only we are so disoriented, especially now the job remains with people who are a little mature to help the young generation.
Because the other problem that comes in there when you talk now to this which he talked about, this knowledge which is passed on from the elders to the grand to the children and down, is that there is a disconnect. You will have a child now on her or his phone. Yeah. Now that time of getting that information from someone else, and people think that all the information is there, and the information is there, but what type of information are we passing on or are we getting? So that disconnect is, I think, one of the problems, and that is also now to do with the values more than the rights, because when you look at, of course, this one has a right on his phone, but what's the value that is attached there? But at the same time, Rachel, this issue of population control. When we talk, I think Ndugulu Garama will come in, but I wanted ladies to talk more about this issue of self-preservation in terms of appearance and looks. That you don't need to have your breasts sagging, and you also have to remain intact so that you, for whatever reason, I don't know. Is that the empowerment we are looking at?
No, it is not. But I think it also is very much in line with what I was saying earlier, that this latest wave of feminism or emancipation, it's dangerous and retrogressive. It does not advance the true interests of women. First of all, if you revisit the definition of feminism, feminism by its definition is aggressive and definitely a pushback against everything deemed male.
Which is also a push against the natural existence.
That is also true. That is why feminism, at its best, destroys society.
Starting with marriage.
Because it's an artificial construct. It is not logical, it is not rational, it is definitely ungodly in the extreme. Because human beings, while I said that in terms of worth and dignity, we're equal. And in this, equality actually means portions, measure is about the same. Equity refers to fairness, to justice. So, in this case, the true practitioners of this feminism I'm talking about seek to displace men wherever they find them. It is not about whether woman Jane is doing fine or woman Proskovia is thriving. That one is now secondary. It is about striving, pushing, struggling, doing whatever you need to do, wherever you find a male. Now that is how bad it has become.
Sure.
Yet, these men are what we need to advance this cause. That is why I was insisting that this whole feminism thing is a human thing. It's about every human being needs clean water. Every human being needs decent health care. Every human being needs a good or decent habitation.
That's why they come in with the hygiene issue. Women.
True, but again, they're hiding behind this, and that is the worst part. It sounds good, it feels good, but by the time you wake up, you are destroyed. And the reason why true expressions of this feminism destroy families is because it is an obsessive reach for control at any cost. Mm-hmm. Even in houses where men are not bad, a woman who is steeped in this thing will still fight him.
Will start violence.
Yes.
Like that.
A woman who's, this thing, it is insidious, it is a spirit. You just strive against him because he's a man. It is whether he's kind and gracious and considerate, you will refuse to cook. Say you need to cook because today I've been. In other words, it seeks to merge the roles, to blur them, and that is where this trans thing also comes from. What kind of nonsense to talk about I am trans? Meaning today I am a man, I might wake up a woman. That is what trans means.
Yeah, because someone said, this issue of being a man or a woman is just psychological. You can, in other words.
But that is an extension of this one.
Exactly. The
First of all, they began in the house, saying, yes, you came in as a wife. Yes, you came in a dress. But now this, in action, be the man. Now they have graduated to saying, you look like a man, but you're a woman. It is the same insidious agenda that must be looked at carefully. So what we are saying, the definition of feminism says that it is the progression or emancipation or pushing emancipation by way of defining and establishing equality of the sexes. That's what they say. But when someone's role is to define, it means they're trying to re-establish the boundaries, the roles, the perceptions. Their agenda is to overthrow things as we knew them. That's really where they're going. It is true where they do this, whether it is in Africa, whether it is in Europe. That's why now they say a man and a man, but that is a family. Now those two men have adopted a child.
Whose child?
If they can't give birth because they will not get a woman, why are you trying to raise a child?
Sure.
Just remain by yourself and die by yourself. But what I am saying is that the present era of feminism is a far cry of what we need as women. It is far and away from where we should be, and it will end in only destruction.
Nduguru Garama, Oviulira. Now, when we look at this in the Pan-African perspective, how do we look at the gender issue in the Pan-African perspective?
Truth be told, I am, for instance, not in for a situation where a woman enters a certain hotel and because of the perception that men have always had, she is stopped and asked as to whether she has an appointment. She should be free, in my opinion, to enter the hotel, access the kind of services that are being provided by that particular hotel. That is one. But we know for a fact that in some countries on the African continent and elsewhere, India especially, and some other countries, a woman will not be allowed and accompanied by a man to enter certain places. Now, this kind of prejudice is very unfortunate, and I think it is part of what some of the feminists argue against. I will go further to say that I remember in the past, I don't know if it happens still now in some institutions of learning, that certain positions, although it is not written, preserved for men, and it becomes as a shock, and it will be resisted if, for instance, a woman emerges and wants to occupy certain positions. Even in offices, formal offices, some jurisdictions, they will try, without saying it loudly for your ears, to stop you from occupying certain offices simply because you are a man, a woman, rather. Now, what is so sad again is that the movements that we have had to address some of these challenges have concentrated too much on the girl child the time is going to reach, and you have, and I think it was Daisy who was talking about it, you will have an over-empowered girl child with a hugely disempowered male child who have grown into adults that again you would have created quite a lot of imbalance.
Sure.
And that kind of society at the tail end, or head end for that matter, will also be disastrous. Now, from the Pan-African point of view, we argued and we still argue that although our societies have been attacked, for every society to develop, there must be cultural tenets upon which it develops. I don't know the kind of cultural model India, China have borrowed to develop and reach where they are. I want to submit that they certainly have not borrowed the French model, they have not borrowed the English model, they have remained with the Indian cultural model, and upon that they have transited to another economic level. We appreciate, from the Pan-African point of view, that the women, and it has been proven through research and practice, are better at saving, and they are honest, and they are good at doing business and making sure that they keep the money. Now, a man does, in majority of the cases, due to a number of reasons, including demands, you trying to be the head of the family. There are so many pockets through which, and you have heard this saying, your wife will come and say, but where do you put your money? For me, I had 100,000 and I still have it. You see, now what happens in a majority of the cases is that a man, certainly, we know for a fact, save for a few exceptional families, yes, where we know that women have got a number of responsibilities. They are looking after extended families, yeah, by nature of the African traditional society. Our families have never been nucleus. They have got responsibilities back home. They have got responsibilities to their new homes. So, save for those, we know that a man will always have a higher responsibility in terms of where the money goes. Now, that does not take away the fact of fairness that if I have the same competence like a man, I should be given the same salary. And societies come from very far. Let no society pretend. The American society, which claims to be at the forefront of fairness and equity, the truth of the matter is that women, through the civil rights movement and elsewhere, have been fighting to gain the kind of position which they have, at least as of now, attained. We know for a fact, for instance, that Hillary Rodham Clinton was not voted into office mainly because she was a woman. I don't think there is any other reason. The population in America will tell you that they voted Trump because he had an edge in terms of intellectual prowess and otherwise against Hillary Rodham Clinton. Apart from that, he was insulting and he had a penis. That's it. He was a man. Can you imagine? So if the American society, which claims to be at a certain level, cultural and otherwise, in terms of appreciating some of these issues, can behave the way they behaved, now, how are you going to blame other societies elsewhere who behave the way they behave? And that is not to say that we are right in appreciating that we should remain static. Some of these old practices, for instance, which we used to have as African society, I know that the best way a society can develop hygiene, cultural, political, economic, and otherwise, is to make sure that we keep evolving. The fact that culture evolves certain practices are left out and new ones are adopted by virtue of the fact that that happens. Therefore, the best way to go forward is to make sure that we harness our strengths, different strengths that God empowered us with. We go into cooperation rather than competition in order to push our society forward.
That again brings us now, thank you, it brings us to a point of parenting, because that's when the values are now being passed over from one generation to the next. It's a family setting where you are going to tell children what to eat, what to put on, how to talk, how to behave. Now, given this empowerment that women are now getting empowered, and sometimes men are on the receiving end, because the empowerment now was meant that men are up some level and they want these women to get to that level. But maybe even men who are not at that level, they also needed a lot of mentoring to be able to be at some level. It comes to the level of now parenting. Doreen, do you think that the next generation or the next generations are going to be any better? Because now women are being empowered to be equal with men.
You know, we need, as we push our children, as we push our societies, our communities, as our families, we need always to think about this common saying that what is good for the goose is good
for the gander.
Now, when things don't work for me, I shout. But I don't want to be responsible for them working. And when things don't work for my partner, meaning my brother, my sister, I mean my brother, my husband, my male colleague, it's okay. If I can, actually, if you've noticed the way some ladies are behaving these days, even if you are just on the road, you can tell that this vehicle, the way it's pushing in the jam, you can tell that probably it's a lady driving this vehicle.
Exactly.
The way the driver is being considerate, the way the driver thinks that for them, they have the right of way actually. Everyone should give them way. Now, that, you know, as we become, as parents, even as communities, but it is sad, communities are no longer the parents of our children, the way African culture used to be. Even your schools are no longer. If at school my child comes back crying, I'll go and face the teacher. Yesterday my child came out crying. Why was he or she crying? You don't even have the courtesy to ask. Why? What happened? You just go and bombard a teacher. And in most cases, teachers have also given up. They are like, they see your child, they've given up. As parents, we need to go back to our values. And what I say that we copy the Western, they have their culture. If a female opened the door for a male, it would be a taboo. You see how they behave. It's within them, it has been brought. If, for example, like in my culture, if someone saw me having a picnic in a graveyard, I would be a witch.
Sure.
But you see them, for them, there is a way they treasure and want to get close to their dead ones to the extent that they can have a picnic there. So this thing of copy and paste, we paste even where you've seen if you overpaste a document, it loses value.
Exactly.
So as we nurture our children, let's go back to the basics. If you speak Lumasaba, how come your children cannot even understand one word.
It's a friend of mine I've been laughing at. He's a Muchiga and the wife is a Munyoro, and the children are speaking Luganda.
Very many.
Now,
that was just.
How that one is good. The others, the only common language in the house is English.
English.
Yes.
How come you don't once in a while, if you have time, take them to their villages to know what happens there? So as we parent, especially the parents, now it goes back to us. But the challenge is, are we there? Do we get time? Maybe government has to come in and start supporting stay-home parents the way in the West they do. If you've given birth, you want to stay home for 3 years to nurse your baby, and you stay home. And those are the ages, are the formative ages of an individual. And what children see, not even what they hear, what they see us doing as parents. By the way, most of the things we do, we don't learn them because they are taught to us. We learn them because we see them.
Yes.
So the way they see you behaving, that pushing, always pulling ropes, you are the one to cook today. Who says that specialization is not a good thing? If I'm a good cook, why can't I cook? If my husband is good at this, why can't he do it? But also I want to refer to what Rugarama said earlier. There is a reason God created female and male species differently. Sure. I don't think it was a mistake. Like you used to see formerly when in our area man, the male would go into hunting because you don't have a physique for it. You are good in this, you are good in being close to children. And equality doesn't mean that you also come and do what I am doing, I do what you are doing. Everyone, there is a way God gave you a skill and a talent. I keep referring to animals. And yesterday I was talking to someone who I was like, why can't human beings be like animals? I've not seen, they are the worst animals. I've not seen a female animal, for example, which abandons its children. That's why even in the lion kingdom, they say if you meet a lion that has cubs, you are finished. Because anything close to it, even a male lion, female lions are known to kill male lions because they think they are getting close to their babies. So why can't we? Of course, we are not animals, and
but we are behaving more
worse than
and feminists will argue that no, this one is not a female the way she's talking.
Sure.
But the truth is, there is a reason you are the one carrying this child and not the other one. Now, let the men come up and do their supportive role. If don't abandon me. I saw this lady who was in papers for having 5 babies, giving birth to 5 babies. I salute her, her husband, who was there all the way. Some men would run away, but whether you have, and it's not a principle of having money or being rich or having a lot. It's a principle of being responsible and being considerate. As Rachel is saying, we are human beings who are supposed to be better than animals in terms of doing things. But the way we are doing them these days, you get a baby and just throw away. You get a baby from day one, as you said earlier. I've seen mothers who are going into labor, they are going to hospital to deliver. Among the things they pack bottles. Bottles for milk. Meaning, right from the day you got pregnant, you started knowing or planning to deny your own child the best food that you can offer, the best gift that is free that you can offer. Then you hear them even looking for money. I don't have money. But God gave you free. As long as you eat, you can breastfeed. So if you can pack bottles, I think where we've reached, we've become so selfish. So we as parents, we need to go back to our children.
Sure.
Both male and female. Talk to them, be close to them, love them. Of all the things, because these children sometimes they are failing to give love and support because they don't have it themselves. If I've grown up seeing my dad waking up every morning, you go, you even, I don't know when you come back, in a week I see you once, why can't I hate men?
Sure.
Why can't I feel that all men, if my father, the one I trust most, could behave like this? Even the husband who has married me is the same. Then even this, your own child, you don't have love to give them. So to me, parents, as we nurture our children, we need both of us to be there. And you've also seen the dysfunctioning of children who grow up with a single parent.
Yeah, because that's also another gender,
yes,
like she said, which is coming up.
Whether female or male. Because you miss the touch of the other side.
Yes.
So if I've grown up with dad only, how can I respect women?
And psychologically, that is proven to be very, very important.
But also at the same time, I think when we talk about the things, sometimes we talk about them in passing, or when people talk about them. When you look at the underlying factors of this promotion of that you can be a single mother, you can be a single father, and still can raise the child. Or that it doesn't matter as long as you can have, because we have now seen the type that she was talking about, these very dangerously empowered women. So I don't need to have to go all the trouble of having a man in my life. I still can go to a health clinic, they call them the fertility clinic,
yeah.
and have a baby.
Actually, if you look at that, in African culture, the Pan-Africans can support me on that. They used to have, even if you lost a husband, or even if you lost a wife, and you are bringing up children, they would have mothers who would strategically be there for them. Because if anything, you are maybe in the same homestead. So it's not that even orphans, efforts would be made to have father figures, yes, mother figures, yes, in their lives. I like there is a model, I don't know whether it's still there. The First Lady had a model in these homes for orphans.
Yes.
Yes. Where they would have homes of like 8 children, and in that home, there would be a father figure and a mother figure who would live in those homes. Though it's many houses, but they have their home. And in that home, they would even allocate them their portion of garden, their portion of what they would cook their meals, not in this open orphanage where you find there is no one. So that they grow up knowing, so in that home you find a father and a mother.
Exactly. So that
up to now we have people who call Kefa Sempanji their father.
Yeah,
because you would be there as the father.
As their father.
We have got this Soroma. They have grown up doctors, lawyers. They are calling this Soroma man.
Yeah,
their father.
Yeah, but I think the African society was such that there was no absence of a father figure or a mother figure in the life of a child. In the event that the mother died, then either the family or the mother's family will send in a person to go and bring up that child or those children. And when the father died, then the family will sit down to find a person who will be responsible for that society, that family. Now the problems came in when they as part of the empowerment, because as and you know, the fathers and the mothers, the victims of the widowed, will not have a lot of influence on that, because then the family will have to decide how to handle that, and the children will still be in the family. Of course, that also has had its issues. But we're also looking at this issue where maybe because of refusing to feed people on breast milk, and now they have been fed on cow milk, and we are having issues of that. When my sister Rachel sends a child to the family, to my family, say you go and be with the uncle and the children of the uncle, then the issues of defilement, issues of sexual harassment, issues of abuse come in. But if that was not the case, then the extended family, I think, to me, was the best way of raising a person, being a child, be a male child or a female child, when the parents are not there. And we have had when people would sit on a kijulu, I mean, the issue of cousins doesn't arise. You either brothers or sisters, period, because you are children in that family.
But what is a cousin in your local language?
It's
not. Why is it not there? It is simply because it had no place.
Exactly.
You see, it's not that our local languages were short of words. I know for the fact that, for instance, in Runyankore, we almost have a word for everything. There's nothing like the English would say forehead. I have heard His Excellency the President say this English is also limited. Forehead. Why? You call it one word. Why can't you have one word? What is it in English? So the fact that some of these names are not there is not by mistake. It was inclusivity, that we are one. It was unheard of for you to start saying, "Here, you are not my brother. Are you is my father the one who is your father anyway?" Simply now that we have got that, and that we have killed the concept of our own African family, that's why we are suffering the kind of problems that we seem to be suffering.
We are now hiring. We have had cases of late. I'm told there is also now this group for mourning. When you lose a person, and you know you don't have many people who are going to help you to mourn your relative, then I think there's a club in Kampala here. You go and pay.
But at least mourners, for children, I call them children, young people, are not even to hire parents to go and kwanjura and do what?
It happened to my friend. I can tell a story. Even if he hears, will not blame me. A policeman who got this lady and went to Kwanjula in some place in Busoga, and this good home. After some time, they developed problems, and they could not. When the man wanted to get back to the auntie, they calls the lady, the phone is not on. So finally tries and gets this lady. Then this lady is mwana wange nsonyiwa. I was just hired for that purpose. Say, okay, let's go and say Muzei. Say, even that Muzei is not there. That home was just hired. That girl does not even come from here. She comes from very far away, and you cannot find, because the girl had carried everything from the house and disappeared.
Now, Mututa, you remember the concept of African marriage? How it used to play out?
The family.
The families were directly involved. Do you know as to why, for instance, almost all across African continent, the concept of marriage was such that your father is directly involved, and he's actually the one. Even when they are giving the woman, the young girl, they don't give you Mututa. They give the money. They say, keep our daughter.
Along those very lines. There is a man I heard of, a similar example to what you're saying. This man had a preference for a certain ethnic group, and he met this lady who looked like she might be from that ethnic group, and she knew his preference.
Like them so much.
And she knew his preference. So, for their introduction ceremony, she actually got a couple who's from that ethnic group, and so that was her family home. You get the picture. So this man thought this was their family home. So after their marriage, he finds out she's from another ethnic group, a totally different part of the country, And he's like, this is not what I wanted. I can't continue with this marriage. I don't know where they ended up. But
and now it goes back to what you are talking about parenting. Because we are nurturing children who don't reason, who are not analytical, who don't understand. Because by the time you meet a woman, you court her, you even go to church, you wed her, you do what? Let's say 3 months, even if it was only 3 months. Within those 3 months, if you should have done your due diligence, you are entering a contract. So
a permanent contract.
A permanent contract.
Especially
so we have these children because we are telephone parents. We have telephone parents these days.
The parents themselves need parenting.
You keep calling. Exactly. Have the children eaten? Have you given? You talked about being defied in extended homes. What about within their own homes? Because you are not there. Have they eaten? Has the baby been bathed? Has she slept? On phone.
There's even a lady I knew. And this particular lady, this was her story. This particular lady, she was a career woman, very upwardly mobile, very much so. And so she wanted to keep up the appearance of a woman who's accomplished in career-wise and also in the domestic setting. So she wanted to keep up appearances constant. I think that was her husband's preference, as in she prepares some of these meals from time to time, even if they had house help. So she knew that he had a bias in that direction. So she tells me that she would run home ahead of when he usually came home, find that the maid had done everything, tucked the children into bed and prepared the meal. So she would actually, now she would send the maid to bed and now pretend it was her work.
Then why can't I take the maid?
I don't know if the man ever found out.
No, but now the challenge would be that children, she is growing up or she's parenting.
The maid is growing.
Even the children, her own children, are seeing you. And children judge. They are judging you. They know that mommy is a flop. She's a liar. Sure. And when they turn up against you later, you start wondering. But they saw, they can be watching, by the way, they don't have to be like they are paying attention, but they are seeing how you are behaving, how you are coming, how you are telling that you are the one who cooked this food, yet it's the maid who cooked it.
Yeah, but again, Rugarama's point there comes in, especially in the African society setting, that when this lady, your daughter or your son is marrying from this particular family, it is also upon the family to find out the type of the mother-in-law they are going to have, the type of father-in-law they are going to have, the family where this girl is going to be.
What if they're in Sudan and you're living in Kampala?
You remember the concept of, for us we call it katerarme, or in English it is a go-between. It plays out in all the African culture. What happens very quickly is that that work of the go-between is to make sure that even if you are far apart, because in the olden days, the families would know each other.
Yes.
And they would make recommendations. I would say, no, marrying from, they would actually book you, betrothing. But even in circumstances whereby you are a little bit at a distance, there is the concept of the katerarme. Forget about these hired katerarmes. They would make sure that somebody moves. But now, it is becoming a little bit complex. Because the work of the parents, the work of these katerarmes, the go-betweens, has also been hijacked in the sense that money plays out, and somebody maybe a week to the wedding is given money and say you come and be the katerarme. The katerarme will go between, but this time maybe you are making phone calls, if ever you made any phone calls.
But of course that's also very dangerous. I've seen it happen, and my family doesn't allow it, because you are going to hire someone to go and speak on behalf of this family, and the number of things that sometimes can go wrong.
The two families you must know the two families. Because it's not just one family, the other side. Two families, at least endeavor to know the two families. There are a number of marriages that have broken down simply because the katerarme has done his job and he has discovered certain things that are not correct.
And that is hired.
You see?
Because
but somebody who is hired will ensure that nothing goes wrong, such that everything. Now, the concept of parenting, in my opinion, if I may conclude on that, is that parenting is becoming very troublesome because of what we have adopted and given ourselves as parents, and the children have become a problem simply because the parents claim they do not have time. Exactly. There is nothing, conclusively, there is nothing like not having time to something that is dear to you.
In fact, you will never have time for anything if you cannot have time for that.
Yourself.
Doreen, your closing remarks.
For me, my closing remark will be, let's go back, especially the parenting. But as we promote these gender issues, let's look at our children as human beings. Because this is a foreign concept. Africa had its own gender roling system. It had its own social system.
The modeling.
A modeling. Now, what we need, we might not go back because society is evolving. And of course, as society evolves, the roles somehow change. But what does not change is the role of me and you being human beings with a responsibility, especially if you are an adult, with a responsibility to nurture everyone, every child around you, whether you are on or not you are on. But also the issue of role modeling. Let's be exemplary. Let's understand that young people learn from us every bit you make. Sometimes I've seen some children who can come and say, "Mommy, I heard Daddy shouting at you."
That's dangerous.
And you are not shouting, maybe you are discussing, but for them, every time you raise your voice, they think you are quarreling. Are you shouting? They don't want that. They are that sensitive. So these years of from 0 to around 12, when they go to secondary schools, maybe they go in boarding schools, know that after 12, that child is gone. After 12, if you've not influenced them when they are still with you, every day they come back home to you, every evening you come back home to them. If you cannot influence them then, if you cannot nurture them well, if you cannot allow aunties under your observation for them to come around, if you cannot allow them to have relatives, know that when they go out, they've gone. They are now going to learn. The school will find a plain paper. And on plain paper, you can throw there anything. The friends will throw there their own cultures they've picked from their own homes. The teachers will throw there. The internet will throw there. The phone. Then another thing would be, let's try and control the usage of phones.
Sure.
It is embarrassing to see a family seated together.
The woman is
everyone is on. The children are like
at a meal.
Is this a family, or each of them belongs to another family somewhere?
Rachel,
I conclude.
Rachel, your closing remarks.
I think for me, my closing remarks are that gender mainstreaming has its place. It has always had its place. Will always have its place because society is not perfect. Society is a work in progress, whether in the African context, European, Asian, wherever human beings are. However, we must guard against extremist interpretations of how men ought to coexist with women. Above all, I think...
You saw in COVID what happened?
Well, that comes out of an extremist
domestic violence
interpretation. It leads to disastrous outcomes.
Sure.
But I think more than that, far above the gender roles that can be restrictive and even counter to our efforts, we should know that whoever approaches this equation with humanity in mind will never be gender insensitive.
Sure. Thanks so much. It has been a very interesting topic today, and I think we shall have more time to talk more about now parenting and the children also, the phones, the TVs, all these things need to be looked at, especially in the African context, because most of these concepts and practices may not necessarily have the root in the African context or cultures, but they are here to stay. So we have to learn how to live with them. Thank you so much for your time being with us. Also thank so much the production crew that has been with us to be able to get to you wherever you are. Next week we will be here again to continue discussing more things, more issues that concern us, the African people, our development and our existence. Don't go away. UBC is coming all the way with more interesting programs after this one, so please stay and watch UBC for information and education, and we wish you the best of the weekend. Shalom.